Well, thank you all so very much for joining us today. To prove that we are human, we were meant to have a third speaker, and alas, he's come down with a stomachache. Doesn't happen with AI, so draw your own conclusions from that one. But so, hope Jack feels better. But so, in the meantime, I guess we will riff it a little bit, and perhaps I may speak a little bit more in that case to provide a more balanced kind of view and the like. So maybe by way of brief introduction, my name is Brian Tang. I lead Light Lab here at Hong Kong U, and I'm also co-chair of ALITA, the Asia Pacific Legal Innovation Technology Association, which allows me to have a broader perspective of the developments across the region. Thank you very much, Ben, for collaborating on this. It's great, and we should be doing more of it. I thought I'd start up with a couple of introductory slides. Some should be quite familiar. So this is the famous Goldman Sachs slide, which when it first came out showed that 44% of all tasks, right, will be, can be replaced by automation. And this compares with a lot of other areas. And of course, this doesn't just impact law, but also knowledge workers writ whole. A less well-known slide within the same presentation actually is this one. Which I often share, where they talk about which countries or jurisdictions will be most impacted. Hong Kong ranks highest, right? So in fact, given the nature of our economy, this makes it all the more important that we are conscious of this, and Hong Kong takes a leadership role in relation to trying to address the evolution and impact of AI. So it's been a busy couple of months, and I wanted to share some introductory slides to give a lot of you context. Here, today's topic is in relation to the Lawtech startup ecosystem in Hong Kong, and we'll touch upon that from a startup founder's perspective and the like. But here, globally, this is what's happened. So last month, Harvey, for those that don't know, Harvey is one of the well-known Lawtech, law AI startups. And if you also don't know, the name came from Suits, the show, right? So Harvey raised $300 million in Series D from Sequoia. There's been an interesting analysis that based on a revenue multiple perspective, Harvey is valued higher than OpenAI, right? And why is that? How is that possible? Right? And the analysis is on the right-hand side, because Harvey famously charges US $1,200 per seat per year. So per seat means per lawyer. That's why they're trying to target large law firms. And you compare with some of the other kind of legal AIs that have different pricing models, right? So of course, this then impacts different parts of the legal ecosystem. If you're a large firm versus medium firm versus small firm, and what are the benefits, pros and cons in relation to some of this. Now, February has been a tremendous month also in relation to assessing legal AI. So beginning of the month, Linklaters published its second English law benchmark. So what does that mean? So this is the second time they've published this. And the first time they published it, AI failed, okay? They used the openly available Gen AI, so they use GPT and they use Gemini or Bard in the first round. This was last year, the year before. This is the second time, and it passed, right? So it's getting better. Now here, they were specifically using these generally available LLMs, but applying it specifically to legal use cases, and specifically English law use cases. Hence, they called it, the English law benchmark, done by a very English law firm, right? So this came in the beginning of February. Then came the VAL's AI report. So if none of you are familiar with this, this is the one that you should all be reading, right? So an independent organization that's looking at evaluations actually did an analysis of Thomson Reuters, VLEX, Harvey, and Vecflow. Apparently, LexisNexis also did participate, but withdrew from the final publication. And you can see the benchmarking that they did in relation to different use cases that are known to be general use cases done by lawyers. What's the summary? Harvey and co-counsel came up tops in a lot of the categories, right? And that helps with the valuation as well, I'm sure, with some of these companies. But remember, so what I was told was the studies were done in December of last year. and every month the models are improving. So snapshot at that stage, things are moving slowly and surely and faster, right? So, so that was the first big report. I think they just issued some commentary yesterday, so this is very fast moving as legal professionals are actually genuinely assessing which platforms are better at what and why and the like. So then came another report. This was by a handful of academics. Daniel Schwartz from Michigan, whom I actually met when I was over in Chicago, he compared two platforms. And he used students actually as the assessors. They used Vincent AI and OpenAI O1 Preview. These are the 5 questions that they got the students to actually assess the platforms on. And so, and hopefully as you see some of the questions, as the lawyers in the audience, you hopefully will resonate. It's like, okay, I see that. I can see some use cases there and the like, right? So this is what their study came up, you know, and very provocatively and nicely titled, I thought, AI lawyering, right? So how do we use AI as part of our lawyering? Vincent is known as a RAG model, so a retrieval augmented generation model. Whereas OpenAI O1 is one of the new reasoning type models, where it goes recursively in terms of asking the questions again and again. So if you do prompt engineering, you have to ask a question and you have to do a chain of thought as you frame your prompt. This does it internally, built in, and that's why it takes like 5 minutes, 10 minutes, 20 minutes for it to do, but it's because it's actually recursively doing it, and by the way, burning a lot of tokens at the same time that they're actually using it. So they were comparing the two kinds of approaches there. And then, not to be outdone, this just came out a couple of weeks ago. And I thought this is actually one of the most relevant to audiences here in Hong Kong, and in fact, most of the rest of the world. So this came from the Nevada bar. So like in most jurisdictions around the world, the vast majority of lawyers are small and medium law firms, right? So can they afford the Harveys of the world? Will they be offered access to that? And so they created an assessment using various criteria, which I list there, and again, happy to share some of the links here in relation to these as well. But very importantly, for those, so how many of you are practicing lawyers in law firms? Yep. So one of the key things is when you actually introduce a new technology, how much does it cost, right? How much does it cost? So it's nice if it's fantastic and really great, but again, the newest OpenAI model that's being introduced, 20,000 US per month. Now, some people say, oh my God, is that worth it? No way, right? But if you think about how much you pay a junior associate a month, and maybe if it's the quality not of a junior associate, but ostensibly a PhD level, which maybe let's call it mid-level associate, or maybe a junior partner, is 20,000 a month worthwhile? Right, again, different business models, different approaches. So in this one, very interestingly, they have new models here that a lot of you may not be familiar with, right? Whether it's ClearBrief and Luminance were added to Vincent, ChatGPT, and Anthropic's Claude as well. So those happen to be the ones that they assessed, and then they graded and the like. My purpose here today is not to sell or say one is better than the other, but to share with you, at least in the broader legal fraternity, there's much more rigor being applied to the different kinds of LLMs that are coming out, and for different use cases and different price points. So ultimately, it's about the different users to decide what they want to do and what makes most sense. So one of my little side hobbies these days is actually to use Gen AI to create images that I post on LinkedIn, right? So the left-hand side one was the image that I posted in relation to, you know, what I call the battle of legal AIs, right? All of a sudden, you had all these reports, right, that I just showed you, all of different legal AIs, and this is all in the month of February. So what is the right tool for your firm? What is the right tool for your legal department? And now there are different analyses coming out, some more transparent than others in terms of replicability of studies. But then I just posted this morning, this one on the right-hand side. So for those who are following Gen AI, we had what's called a DeepSeek moment, right, a month ago, and well, nearly 2 months ago now. That's when DeepSeek was introduced in open source and very famously from China. And so suddenly, for developers and startups, wow, I can do an open source model now. I can create my own. It's much easier. It's faster, right? And then last week, a new platform called Manus AI came out, again from China. And Manus AI is meant to be agentic, right? So rather than a traditional chatbot, which is how we're kind of used to using the AI tools, you can actually ask the question, and then it goes on and actually does things, and it actually can code itself. It can create a website. It maybe can review not just holiday suggestions, but book it for you and the like. So there was a comment made by Ethan Mollock, who's quite a famous commentator, this morning. He called it, oh, it looks like mainly a Claude wrapper. So the phrase wrapper used to be a little bit derogatory. It used to be like, you know, this is the hardcore LLM, and they're just adding a wrapper on top of it, and then they're selling it like that. But actually, there's another analysis around that. If LLMs are getting commoditized, if there's so many of these LLMs, and they're open source ones, could it be actually application level? Could it actually be the new UI UX that is a competitive advantage here, right? And that may or may not explain the valuations of companies like Harvey in the legal space, where it's very high value added if somebody cracks the solution there. So with that kind of background, that was meant to be a brief introduction to a couple of Hong Kong startups here that we have. I've been involved in the legal tech space for a little while, and startups are hard, and legal techs are kind of harder sometimes, right? You know, if you're doing a B2B sale and you're trying to sell to a law firm who's very conservative, right? So are they willing and able to, you know, what are they willing and able to make decisions in that light? So fast forward, so as we shared, alas, one of our startup founders is unfortunately unable to join us, but we're very lucky here to have Ron. So welcome, Ron. Please welcome Ron to the stage. Thank you.
Thank you.
So maybe, Ron, let me start the ball rolling. So the way I was going to structure today was as follows. I was going to ask the startup founders a couple of questions. I might be a pretend Jack a little bit just to give a counterpoint. But hopefully we'll have another chance for him to share more directly. And then I was going to give some time for each of the startup founders to do a brief demo in relation to their tool. What I found is that so I do a lot of work in fintech. And in fintech and regtech, often they would talk about their solutions, but they all sound the same, right? You see their brochures, they all sound the same. So it's nothing like actually seeing the demo for yourself, and then you make up your own minds and like, right? So maybe if you can briefly introduce yourself there, Ron, and including, are you from the law or are you from the tech side?
Okay, I'm Ron, and I have a startup called Makebell, and Makebell is an AI agent startup for legal tech. Am I from the law side? Well, I do teach classes in law, so I guess that makes me from the law side. I do have a technical degree, so I guess that also makes me from the technical side, so I guess I'm schizophrenic.
No, thank you. So I always assume you did start with a law degree, yes?
I started with a Bachelor of Science in Mechanical Engineering.
Okay, so did you have a law degree at all?
No, I thought about getting a law degree, and I said, oh, I have to read all these cases. No, I'm not going to do that.
Fair enough, fair enough. So the reason why I asked, I've known you for a long time, but I always assumed that you did have that background. Because the other founder, Jack, is a pure technology person. He started from crypto, right? And he built stuff on blockchains type stuff, and then he came across, then came Gen AI, so then he's creating Gen AI solutions. Then he came across the law. So my point about this, and we see this in fintech as well, people who start from the fin side, or people who start from the tech side, and then they come in you know, and they merge there. So why and how did you start with this law tech journey?
Well, actually, I was always interested in law, but I actually got my law degree when I was a bit later in life. My background, aside from the mechanical engineering degree is actually in IT. So I had worked in IBM, Hewlett-Packard, Wang Laboratories, and FedEx in the IT space. So, and during that time, I actually had some interest in AI. Now, AI, when I was starting out, was quite different than what it is now. It was mostly, for those of you who are familiar with the history, it was mostly expert systems, perhaps a little bit of fuzzy logic, and there was also the robotics element as well. I did get to do some robotics work. When I was at IBM, we were actually working on a system for manufacturing protocols for local area networks, so there was also a lot of robotics involved with that as well.
So that's from the advisory side, that's from working in companies, but what started in the entrepreneurial law tech space?
Well, actually, I have to thank you for that. The history is of our company is that the founders all met at a hackathon organized by Brian over here. A couple of years back, we got together and we formed this group. And at the time, we weren't quite sure whether we'd go into law tech or not. We were very much all interested in AI in some form. And we kind of started playing with AI, seeing what we could do with it. But in the end, we gravitated back towards legal because that all three of us were lawyers or legally trained. So we realized that was actually our core strength, rather than trying to get into certain areas that we weren't particularly good at.
Thanks, Ron. So real story, I didn't know that part until very recently. So by way of my own background, I came from big law. I was at Mallesons in Australia, then Sullivan & Cromwell in New York, and then in-house at Credit Suisse, so big law and big bank. And then I left to go into startup land, into fintech and regtech. And how I came back into the law was when I learned about this thing called Global Legal Hackathon. I said, finally, lawyers going to hack, right? Going to work on technology. Who's going to organize it in Hong Kong? Nobody was. So I said, look, if somebody will underwrite it, I'll do it. So Thomson Reuters agreed to underwrite it, and so I organized Hong Kong's first legal hackathon. This was held at Thomson Reuters, so much thanks to them. And our top team in Hong Kong made it the finals in New York, and they won. So it's actually on the back of that Hong Kong U tapped me in the shoulder and said, hey, will you come and lead a new initiative here in Hong Kong U? So that's that part of my story. But it was only recently when prepping for this, and we had a pre-call, and we had one of, I think your third founder join. I said, his name is Hadrian, right?
It's Cadrian.
Cadrian,
yeah.
Which is a very unusual name. And I was like, I know that name from somewhere. Where do I know that name? And that was when I realized all three founders met at that hackathon. I did not know that story until really recently.
Actually, what happened was I was the first one. I met Cadrian. And then the second day, I actually dragged my other co-founder. I literally dragged him. Ian, you can double check. Kenneth will confirm that with you. I literally dragged him out of his house.
Right.
And yeah, that's how we got together.
Fantastic. So now that you've got this, so just to position for everybody, this is 2018, 2018, right? So quite, in Gen AI terms, it's like 3 decades ago, right? Before Gen AI even came about. So when you were first looking at the technologies, it was not AI. Well, it was classical AI potentially, right? Yeah.
Well, actually, it was more machine learning than anything else. And we actually had a lot of ambitious plans. The problem was that the technology was not quite there yet. And with those of you who are familiar with machine learning development, you realize that there's quite a lot of training, there's quite a lot of time, and there's quite a lot of money involved. And then when the transformer models came out and ChatGPT, all of a sudden things that were not quite possible suddenly became possible, and then with the time frames that were very, very attractive.
Yeah, so again, I think that's right. So I call November 20th World Synthetic Data Day, because that was the day that ChatGPT was launched, and with all the new stuff that's generated, there's all this, what they now call AI goop, and then they post it on the internet, and then the new models are actually training on that goop, right? So on that synthetic data, if you think about it, right? So now fast forward in the latest incarnation of what you have created here. So who's your user persona? What problems are you trying to solve?
Well, actually, we started to work on agentic AI before it became a thing because we realized that a lot of processes need to be automated. And you actually have to put these processes together and combine them with the generative AI to actually make, make certain actual productivity improvements beyond, for example, drafting contracts or drawing pictures.
Okay, so maybe we'll take that as a nice segue for you to share a brief demo of what you currently have. Sure. As I let you set up. So because, alas, Jack is not here, we have a little bit more time and leeway in terms of how we structure today. And the hope and intent is after seeing the demo, I will ask a few more questions, and then I please want to open up to the floor for you all to ask questions of Ron and or me in relation to today's topic. Over to you, Ron.
Sure. So we were developing agentic AI systems, and these will run on local or cloud servers. Now, part of the reason we offered the local is because we had to deal with, for example, a lot of conservative lawyers who were very, very much concerned with legal privilege, and they wanted, full control of the data. So we did offer them both a cloud-based as well as a local option. Now, one of the things we have done to show you the power is to show a demonstration of the completion of a long-form document. Now, this actually happens to run on a somebody's computer, so I can't actually show it to you here. But let me just go through this. This is with a private placement memorandum, which is often a 100-page document, prior to the launch of a financial instrument. Now, the PPMs are quite long and complicated, and most places, law firms and even some financial firms have their own templates. And so what happened is when they're doing this in the past, it would be done manually, which meant they had to fill in the forms, the blank spaces manually, but they also had to delete sections which were not relevant. What we have done here is we've actually provided a questionnaire. They fill out the questionnaire, and it will automatically fill out the form. And it will also automatically remove irrelevant sections. So, for example, you're doing a private placement in Hong Kong only, and it will remove, let's say, the sections relating to London, New York, etc., in the template. Now, the other things that we have done include a case bundle, a system to manage case bundles. So what it does is it helps barristers, for example, litigation solicitors, deal with a lot of documents. And it will actually ask questions. It will take these documents, it can summarize them, create timelines. It will ask them questions like, for example, what remedies are being sought. Now, in this particular demo, we've actually used a subset of the Google versus United States litigation that's currently ongoing. So it will answer questions about the remedies being sought. It can also answer questions about the complaint as well as the amended complaint, among other things. The other things that it will do, we will also help with indexing, so that and it can also perform queries. So in case somebody was brought this to court and they wanted to double check a witness statement, they could use this to double check the witness statement as if they were using Google or some other search engine. The system itself can run on the cloud, but it's also for purposes of legal privilege, it also can run on a localized server, so that is air-gapped from the internet. Now, the other demonstration here is for a system to assist with the commercialization of patents. Now, what happened is that a lot of the universities and other organizations have patents they would like to have, commercialized. So what this system does is it will let you query against, let's say, a university's patent database. So you say, I'm interested in 6G technology, for example, and it will bring up potential matches. It will also provide summaries of these inventions and patents, as well as a relevance score and how relevant they are to your inquiry. Now, from there, you can select a particular patent, and it will reveal the patent to you. Okay, so it brings it up. It will also provide you with a summary if you like, and you have certain questions. For example, what does this thing do? What problems does it solve? It will also help you with listing out the components. It will identify the areas of technology that this is involved with. And it also can provide you with a list of potential licensees. So this helps with commercialization. Now, the system itself that we've shown here is actually capable of much more. It is capable of taking for example, somebody's research paper and creating an information disclosure form for example, a law firm or lawyer to write a patent with. It can actually also draft a patent, which is what we usually don't tell lawyers, right? But no, just not to scare them away. But actually, no, I'm just kidding about that. There are other things that it is capable of doing. We've added a few other, we're working on a few other features to assist with office actions and other tools to assist with the, facilitate the process of getting a patent. The office action is when you get a patent, when you apply for a patent, and the examiner will look at the patent and say, I don't like this thing, and he'll reply with what is called an office action. And we actually have built a system to help analyze and formulate replies for the office action as well. Okay, oops, I think we've gone back to the start.
Okay, great. Well, thanks so much for that. So again, I wanted a kind of demo so that you can actually see what the UI UX is like. I don't know whether it's real time or you had fast forwarded the response time.
Oh no, this was real time.
Okay, no, just checking. And it is a shame that Jack can't be with us, because then you can see a different UI UX and how they're presenting it. So ironically, I first met with you and Jack when you were both presenting at the Asia Financial Forum. And because of my work at FinTech. But what struck me was I think you were the two legal techs at that venue. So maybe if you can share a little bit. So I believe Jack's platform is kind of more all ready to go, shall we say, right? And so people can actually interact and use it. Whereas your model is a little bit more a still consultancy type model. You're creating bespoke solutions.
We are more on the bespoke solution. You're correct.
Okay, great. And it's interesting, your first example was on PPMs, because David Solomon, the CEO of Goldman Sachs, has actually publicly stated that he thinks 95% of prospectuses can be drafted by AI. And given how much IPOs are a big deal for Hong Kong, a lot of law firms I think might want to pay attention to that. So what's under hood here? So what kind of LLMs are you using? What data? Okay,
the data is. Well, it can be a combination of client-specific data, or it will also be the data that the models have been trained with. We are somewhat platform agnostic, so we offered initially a choice of the models, and this was because each model we found had specific strengths in certain areas. So when we're putting the agents together, we would actually match different models. So the agent itself would be heterogeneous in the type of background technology. We have more recently upgraded the models to have DeepSeek R1, for example. People can choose whatever model they want, and if they prefer a particular model for whatever reason, we will, easily just, tell them, okay, fine, we'll just take out, Claude and we'll put it, DeepSeek or whatever.
So in my Light Lab class, I get my students to create chatbots on Poe. And for those that know Poe, you can actually choose which model that you want to use, and then I get them to compare it and the like. So for your clients, are they sophisticated enough to say, like, can you check it using DeepSeek R1 versus check it versus Claude? Or are you like, this is my secret recipe, kernel secret recipe, this is what I think is best for your solution?
Let me answer the question slightly differently, if you don't mind.
Yeah.
One of the things that has happened over the past few months is that the expectations of people have grown considerably, particularly after the launch of DeepSeek. The quality that people are demanding is much higher, and the sophistication of the modeling is also much higher. And I would also point, since I do teach classes in IP and patent law, I have actually seen the quality of students' papers go up. I have no problem with students using AI, by the way, because I expect them to. But I have also noticed that as well. And I do understand that people will be quite naturally benchmarking us against a lot of models. I'm sure that the other providers are also being benchmarked against general models as well.
Okay, so, no, great, and we can talk about the students part and where the teacher hat later on. But as a law tech, so again, you've seen some of these evaluations. I don't know whether you've had the chance to look at some of them and what your thoughts were. Because ultimately, it seems like the right direction, because people will say, Ron, okay, this looks great, but is it correct? Is it a good answer, right? How do you respond to that?
I think when you look at the benchmarks are good for models that are doing very specific contained tasks, which have fairly definite answers. I think in most cases, legal answers are ambiguous at best. This is why we have litigation and mediation and arbitration. So I think whether the answer is good or not, it really depends on the lawyer. And I also point out that some of the answers nowadays require analysis by different lawyers in different fields, and the answers may not be necessarily all legal. For example, let's talk about, I hate to go back to intellectual property, let's talk about know-how, okay, because know-how is an important part of protecting the IP in an agentic AI. It's actually kind of difficult to protect just with IP laws for various reasons I won't get into. So if you have an agentic AI, one of the things you want to protect, if secrecy is a big deal, is access to the model. And so how do you do that? Well, you can't rely on IP law. You actually have to rely on cybersecurity, which is a completely different animal. Okay, so as a result, and answers that might have been fairly simple once a long time ago, like how do I protect the copyright of my painting? When you get into agentic AI, they become extremely complicated and multidimensional.
Okay, so is it a different way of saying it depends?
It's a long way of saying it.
Good lawyering there. So let me pause briefly. I want to open it up to the floor for anyone who has questions for Ron and myself in relation to what he's doing, his platform, and the ecosystem.